The dawn of the 70s shed a robust statistical light on the prestigious state of American higher education. The public saw higher education as a growth industry. Its stability was reflected in solid buildings and sound values. Data for the 1969-1970 year saw 8.65 million students, 383,000 full-time faculty, 2,573 institutions, over 1 million bachelor's degrees awarded, close to 30,000 doctorate degrees awarded. With a current fund income of $21.5 trillion and major enrollment gains for minorities and women, the future looked bright. However, this was merely a facade that covered deeper problems as the perfect mess that created the golden age of American education began to unravel a bit at the beginning of the last trimester of the 20th century. Growth to this point relied on little data analysis and strategic planning. This mentality would no longer sustain our education systems as stagflation hit, funding sources dried, and demographics changed. Seeing our prestigious educational system begin to waver was a call to action for groups such as the Carnegie Corporation. Their study found that colleges and universities in all sectors were overextended in their annual operating budgets and long-term endowments and ill-equipped to handle sustained declines in funding. The American education giant was cumbersome, ill-informed, and unable to react quickly to changing situations. So what is one to do when already overextended? Well, expand further, of course. Relying on the belief that there would be continued enrollment growth and generous funding over the coming years, there was a proliferation of new degree programs and fields of study and a push to enroll new kinds of students. This fueled a cycle of keeping up with the Joneses, where programs and actions were imitated at schools across the country. This imitation was done regardless of the new trends facing each specific school. New programs increased, but enrollment was dropping. This was due to a declining birth rate and the end of the mandatory U.S. military draft. In addition, movement towards Sunbelt schools depleted the ranks of schools in the Northeast and Midwest. In an effort to provide data to better inform future decisions by colleges and universities, the federal government established the Higher Education General Information Survey, which morphed into what we know today as IPEDS. The Newman Report, written in 1971 and sponsored by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, summarized the issues with the era. Change was necessary and on the horizon.
One of the areas of change involved in providing better access for all students to a college education was the federal government's interest in new ways to assist students with financial need, which led to the creation of the Federal Work-Study Program. This program was attractive because it allowed students to learn valuable skills in order to receive their aid. When the price of college increased in 1960, Congress needed to be creative in funding a need-based aid program to larger groups of students. This led to the Basic Educational Opportunities Grants, or the BEOG program, later named Pell Grants. The program was made as an amendment in 1972 to part of the Higher Education Act of 1964. The stipulations of the grant were the student had to be accepted and registered at an accredited institution, enrolled full-time, and in good academic standing as an undergraduate student. The grant was that it was given to the student and not the institution, which allowed for more freedom for the student in choosing their institution. This caused problems for the institutions as they now had to compete for students to attend their school. The grant became so popular it helped more students go to college. Since these institutions were receiving federal funding through the grant-based programs, the institutions were subjected to federal regulation, which meant more attention and resources for civil rights and social justice. In 1978, students needed more help with college costs, which called for the development of the Guaranteed Student Loan Act. The surge in using student loans meant the surge of debt for students after graduating college. There was a debate that institutions would raise tuition costs in order to chase financial aid dollars from the government. This led to the study of costs to attend institutions per student. The cost of college showcased the issue within higher education, which was institutions were competing with one another.
As the evolution of the college campus continued, pressures for action came from racial minorities, women, and students needing accessibility. New admissions policies were designed to diversify campuses and impact the student population. As the student population evolved, so did non-traditional students, including part-time students and adult learners. Institutions began to accept transfer students from public two-year community colleges, and the traditional amount of time for degree completion began to extend beyond 4 years. During the Golden Age, administrators focused on retention and degree completion, and now we began to see expanded student support offices such as professional advising, teaching and learning centers, and resource centers such as LGBTQ offices, all with the mission to further increase student success. However, by 1990, institutions were being questioned on the ethics of their decision-making. Campus crime was increasing, college sports scandals were coming to light, and cheating in academia became an epidemic. Heading into the 21st century, higher education has become a global market and form of international trade with student mobility, the expansion of branch campuses in other countries, the impact of global college rankings, and the fast growth of for-profit institutions. Many students are leaving their home countries for education, thus resulting in a gap of educated citizens, causing countries and institutions to fight for faculty and students more than ever. Whatever the future may hold, it is clear that the reshaping of global higher education has led to greater access to education worldwide.